Welcome to the Intentional Life podcast, where it's all about real strategies, real tools, and techniques to help you truly become the author of your life story.
Hello, guys. We're so happy to be back. Thank you so much for the comments and the love that we received. We love getting messages from you, so please keep them coming. Right?
Hi, everybody. So glad to be back.
Yay! So, this week, what we want to talk about is the importance of self-talk. And please bear with us if it may sound a little bit boring. We do believe that it's actually one of the most important things that we should actually become aware of. And I am a believer that once you realize just how vital it is and how much of our lives is controlled by the self-talk, you will want to spend a little bit more time in getting in becoming more aware of the self-talk, and also maybe employing tools or two how to basically make and switch up your self-talk so it would be working for you, not against you.
Exactly. I actually think it's such an exciting topic. I'm super excited about it. And oh my God, it's so important. So, as a little introduction, let me just throw in there, just so that we become clear and aware that our mind is constantly thinking, is constantly talking to ourselves, right? And it's just what it does. It's our heart beats and we have reflexes, and but our mind is just constantly thinking. And I think we tend to identify with those thoughts that are coming up, constantly without stopping. Even when we're trying to fall asleep, it will be like yada 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 yada. And what we have to realize is that around 95% of the time our mind is just chattering away unconsciously. It's on autopilot, it's totally unfiltered, it's repetitive, and it is not real, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, something that I find, fascinating is that actually when you go to a hypnotherapist, they will give you a tape of repetitive words and stuff that's like constantly coming at you so that it may work on your subconscious and create some change. And that's what we are doing with our self talk all the time. Our self talk can really have a hypnotic effect on us. That's why it's so, so important to become aware of what it is that we're constantly saying and thinking to ourselves. Because that's really the first step towards getting some control and to be able to change it.
Mm. Absolutely. And another thing I was just listening to you thinking is that not only is it so important and it plays a lot, a huge effect in our lives, at the same time, what is it, 90% or even more than that, 93%, I read somewhere recently, of our thoughts are the same thoughts, meaning that we don't really introduce new things into our thought process. It's kind of like a computer. Once it's installed, it just keeps on like recycling and recycling and recycling, right? That's
But
why.
at least a computer will do an update from time to time,
Ah,
which we
yeah,
don't. We don't do an update on our right?
I'm thinking of those old school computers, the first ones. I remember the first computer that I had, the
Exactly.
massive one, like flip flop. What was it? Not
Oh
flip
my God.
disks or whatever they're called. When you like record the software in and then that's done, right? So that's what I'm
Right.
thinking of, the old school computer. You just install things, and in order to move ahead in your life and just live a different quality life, you need to review those programs and update them, right?
hmm
I love that.
Exactly. Because now is like whatever, right? 20, 30, 40 years later. And a lot of times we're still running on the same thinking patterns that we created in childhood.
Exactly. And you know what? I love it as well. I mean, this is just so interesting because I was also thinking the other day is that we are pretty much this, we are the story that we tell ourselves. So, tying back to what you just said, Camilla, is basically if, at some point in our childhood, especially in the formative years, we basically learned or we realized that we are one way or another, or that we have certain qualities and we don't have any other qualities. And that becomes our story, that becomes our truth. And this is what we build our life on.
Mm.
Right.
I love how you say our story, our truth, because that's
Mm.
exactly what it is. It's this paradox of it's actually just our story, but we are certain that it is the truth. I love
Right,
that.
right. Oh, I like the way you put it like that. Exactly.
You put
Exactly.
it that
Yeah, I
way.
know. But then when you framed it, I was like, oh, wow, that's good. Yeah, our story is our truth, right? So, for instance, one of my examples that I have from my personal life is that, at school, I was kind of like, I think I've mentioned before, I was interested in all the subjects. I was quite good at everything and didn't really excel at one particular subject, right? But what I did kind of notice was that I think in one of the art classes, I think the teacher sort of like made fun or commented on my work, right? And then you were a child. I don't think that's the right thing to do, but that's a whole different topic, parenthood and how
Mm,
you're supposed to speak with children, right? And ever since
mm,
then, I just told myself, because the adult who I respected told me that, my work was not good, I just told myself that I'm not creative in sort of a traditional way, right? That I cannot paint, that I cannot, whatever, do anything with colors and things like that. And I sort of chose I took that notion, I installed it, and then moving forward, I chose, to study finance and really those subjects that are very sort of, disciplined. And just recently, I discovered that I love painting, and I love, I do abstract art, and I love playing with colors. And then, people started seeing them. And, I still did it for me because I realized that I love it. But at first, I wouldn't even show it to anyone because I was like, well, it's not good, is it? Like, why would I even show it? Because I so believed in the story. And then people started asking me, like, oh, can you paint something for me? Oh, I love the colors. And I was like, oh my God, could it be that I'm actually, not challenged? And
mm.
also, of course, art, it's the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So I think
Yeah.
everyone, all of us are artists, right? We just buy into the story where we were told at some point that we can or cannot do something. And it's both true, right? Whether you can or cannot do, if you believe in that, it will become your truth.
Yeah, totally. And I loved how you mentioned briefly the way that adults speak to children. And I just remembered that I read somewhere that the way we speak to actually, the way we speak to children is usually the way that we speak to ourselves. So
Hmm.
maybe this can help you to kind of, watch how do you treat a child? Are you very strict with it? And maybe it will resemble the way or reflect the way that you speak to yourself internally, because as I said, we are usually we're so unaware of what we're saying to ourselves all the time.
Right. Yeah. One of the most, another experience I can share, which I love this example, is when I did that, sort of, that was my introduction to the thought process. And up until that particular event, I thought I was quite aware. And after the event, I realized I was not aware at all. So that was me going on a 10-day Vipassana boot camp. I'm not sure.
Nice.
I'm not sure if I told you. Have you tried Vipassana?
No, I would love to though.
Right. So, for those of you who don't know, it's a very popular sort of method, and people do that quite a lot. So, basically, for 10 days, you go out to a secluded location, and then you take away your phone, take away your notes, and you just live. Well, I lived, in the countryside on a lakeside. It was a beautiful location, but basically, for 10 days, you're not allowed to speak to anyone. You're not really advised to make eye contact. You get up at, say, 4:30. You go to bed at 9. It's very strict, and all you do for like 11 hours a day, you meditate. And basically, you learn the Vipassana way is just a way of meditating by noticing and scanning your body and noticing any sort of sensation and trying not to attach to it. Because what the mind
Mhm.
also loves to do is attach labels to everything. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps as I'm talking about this. So yeah,
Mhm.
so basically, for the first 3 days, you are taught to. I don't want to ruin it for those who haven't done it, but basically, for the first 3 days, what you do, 11 hours a day, you sit and you focus on your breathing and you focus on that part between your nose and your upper lip. That's all, right? And
Mhm.
let me tell you, and it was such a beautiful introduction and sort of familiarization for me with my mind, because for the first 3 days, my mind went bananas. Like,
Mhm.
because you have nothing to distract you with. I didn't have my phone the first day. I felt so incredibly lonely because the minute I would get, that sense of, oh, I'm lonely, I want to speak to someone, we can always grab a phone or we can always talk to someone who's nearby. You didn't have that. You were left
Right.
alone with your own thoughts, right? And I was like, oh my God, there's no distraction. I'm not going to last for 10 days. I'm going to die here, right? Because for the mind, it's also like the mind, it needs something to work with. And then, the
Hmm.
second day, I started noticing people around me, right? And because we're not allowed to speak or make eye contact, but I would observe a lot. And then, once sort of the mind, I call it it's really the monkey mind, because the thoughts become so aggressive and you really hear them because you have nothing to distract you with. I realized how
Yeah.
angry, for me, like my mind, like was so angry, so judgmental, even though I always pride myself in being, very liberal and accepting and, just respecting that we're all going through different processes. There was this girl sitting in front of me and she was so very, I thought she had ADHD or something. Like she could not sit still. She would cough. Then, she would make eye contact. She would exercise. None of it we're allowed to do. And in my mind, I was just judging her so bad. And then, I even got an image of my mind, and my mind was this angry little red person sitting on the corner of the tables, like looking at everyone and being like, really, really upset with everyone and be like, this one is doing that, this one is doing that, right? So like day 4, and oh yeah, another one which I loved was then I wanted to take a shower and we couldn't speak, right? So we couldn't really there was one shower between 5 of us. We couldn't really adjust who goes when, so you just had to kind of look for a good moment. And I went into the shower, I put soap on me, and then I realized there was no hot water left because it was kind of like like really old
Oh.
school place, and my mind went off. And this was the first time where I really like sort of separated myself from my mind and I started laughing. I became like, then that's when I became the observer. And I was like, oh
Hmm.
Lord. And my mind was like, I bet it's this Latvian girl who was before me. She used up all the water. Like she has such long hair. She like,
Oh my God, I love this. This is so
this,
relatable and
right?
so interesting.
And and it was just going off. And at one point, I stopped myself, and then it's almost like from another perspective, I said, are you sure? And then my mind was quiet. And then I was like, what if the Latvian girl took a cold shower as well? My mind
Hmm.
was quiet. Like when you start like picking up on that, you realize that your mind is not so smart. It's just running on the program, which we don't
Yeah.
notice. But once
And
you
it's
start
not the
questioning,
reality.
it's not. It's not. But imagine if we don't hear that. Imagine that, like you said, the background noise that the mind makes and even makes us feel anxious. A lot of people feel anxious, they don't even know why. And it's because of the thought process that's going on in the background, telling you things that you're not good enough, that you're not doing enough, that you're not this, that you're not that, right?
Wow, I love this. I would love to do a whole episode on that, or at least you have to tell me all about it afterwards. This is so great. And I mean, yeah, what's a better way to really sit and watch your mind go on than a Vipassana, right?
Right. Or you can do it, it can be a daily practice. It doesn't have to be a glorified, bootcamp experience. It's just, it helps you when you're separated from the world. But what I wanted to say, like on day 4, my mind went quiet. You know why? Because I wasn't feeding my mind anymore. I was
Yeah.
just like observing what I'm thinking, sometimes laughing, sometimes being like, "Oh wow, like I'm an angry person." And I had to even admit that to myself, even though like I said, I'm so lovely and bubbly all the time, and I was like, "Wow, there are stuff that I didn't even know inside of me." And
Exactly.
from day 4, it was quiet, and Camilla, I've never felt such peace as I did for the rest of
Ah,
that,
I can
Vipassana.
imagine. I mean, I just know from my own meditations that when I manage to get there, it is so peaceful and it feels so good. And at other times, I can actually be arguing with myself. Don't you know that,
Mm-hmm.
that you're just arguing with yourself, which is ridiculous because if you were your mind, how could you argue with your mind? So
Right.
really that's the switch that you have to do in your brain and your thinking to say I am not my mind. I can argue with my mind, so I cannot be
Mm-hmm.
my mind. Otherwise, I would be like a, split personality.
Right.
And yeah, and it just goes on and on. So really, guys, we want to draw your attention of the importance of controlling what you let in, what you feed your mind with, and what you expose yourself, the thoughts that you expose yourself to, all the time. So, for me, for instance, last year, we were preparing for our latest move to Bilbao. And I mean, I'm no stranger to moving. I had done so before, but it just caught me at a time where I was really settled, and we had the kids, and we were living in my home country for 3 years in total,
Mm.
in between other destinations. So it was just really comfortable for me, and I was living close to my parents, and so much going on and so much to do, and it was just lovely. So obviously, I wasn't super excited about moving, having to move away from my husband's career. And but luckily I was already a coach, and I think a coaching experience, whether it's actually studying and training to be a coach, or getting coaching from a coach, really helps you to analyze and to get on top of your self-talk. And so with this asset in my toolbox, let's just say, I really worked on controlling my thoughts, and I came up with this exercise that nowadays I call the counter thought exercise, and I tell it to all of my clients, and I love it. I still do it, but I do it naturally. I don't have to think about it. Like it's just what happens. My brain is wired now to do that automatically. But what I would start doing is that every time I had a critical or a negative thought about my upcoming move, I would just force myself to think one opposite thought, right?
Mm.
So it's not about, you don't have to force yourself to believe anything. You just expose yourself to a different kind of thinking. That's so fascinating because, as Wilma mentioned, we just repeat thoughts over and over. We don't introduce new ones. So this is a great tool and a great exercise to achieve that. So let's just say I was thinking, oh, I won't be able to see all my friends, and my great friendships, they might suffer from the distance. And then I had to think some opposite thought, and that would be, for instance, but when I come and visit them, I will make sure that it's such quality time,
Mm.
and I will really also keep in touch, and I will invite them to come and visit me. And I will make sure that every encounter is so intimate and so inspiring for everyone. So, and
Yeah.
just thinking that, you just train yourself to do it. I did it. Ah, maybe you see someone, and you know how a thought pops into your head that you're not proud
Mm.
of, like maybe
Yeah.
she really shouldn't be wearing this because it
Right.
doesn't suit her or something. Ooh. And then immediately I went, oh, but look, she has such a lovely smile, or she has such pretty hair, whatever it
Mm.
was. And as I'm telling you guys, by now I'm just doing it automatically. And I feel like I have so many more thoughts to choose from, and it's so enriching for your daily life. It really, really changes the way you experience things and the way you react to things. Super
Right.
important.
Wow, I love that. I really do. That also reminds me a little bit of the work by Byron Katie. I don't know if we mentioned the work on the podcast yet, where
We should
basically,
do an episode on that, don't you
yeah,
think?
it's like such an
I love
easy,
it.
simple, but like such a powerful transformative tool,
Oh, yeah.
which again deals with the thought process and you asking yourself questions because you can't believe, everything that your mind thinks because, like we said, again, a repetition. It's running on something that was introduced, and a lot of the times that's why we talk about guarding our focus, and Camilla just said that let's be very careful what we let in because there's so much noise and pollution
Hmm.
energetically and thought wise around us that we don't even notice how we let it all in. We install it and then it starts running our lives. So questioning, say you have, like Camilla said, like you have a statement, right? Like the world is not a safe place. A lot of people have that these days, right? And then you go like, is it true? And then you almost direct your mind into finding ways, like Camilla said, a counter thought that is actually, well, no, my neighborhood, actually, I feel very safe in my neighborhood. And actually, everyone that I know are very, very friendly and polite people, and they would never hurt others, right? So like that's how you give your mind a task and the direction to work towards, right? That's how you
Exactly.
refocus it.
Because where focus goes, energy flows. It's just
Mhm.
really what we focus on and what lens we use to view things.
Right, exactly. Okay.
And another thing that I was just thinking of is that the words we use, they also have a lot of meaning. So
Mm-hmm.
when we analyze our self-talk, it would be really interesting to maybe just, write down on your notepad or on your phone, what words do you usually use to maybe describe yourself, to describe a situation? So, for instance, um, here a lot of people, when they, like in an exaggerating way of speaking, of course, but they will refer to an unpleasant incident as a catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear that a lot. And when your body hears catastrophe,
Mm-hmm.
it will actually have a biochemical reaction to that
Yes.
because it's a very fear inducing word. It's a
Mm-hmm.
catastrophe. What is a catastrophe? Well, that would be
Right.
like war or, you know, famine, some dangerous thing. So I do believe that we might not realize that the words, the terms we choose have an effect on us, but they also do. They have an effect on our bodies and on our unconscious. And
Mm-hmm.
so, just try and first of all analyze what words are you usually choosing, whether it's in thought or when you speak, and then try and upgrade your vocabulary a little bit and try and be more assertive with your choice of words. So maybe you say, I'm angry, but is angry really the best word to describe what you are? Are you maybe, I don't know, overwhelmed or overloaded or stressed or peeved or something else? It's very interesting because the meaning changes and your reaction will change depending on the word that you choose.
Yeah.
So really try and be very assertive also with the choice of words
Mm-hmm.
within your self-talk.
Yes. And it's gonna take a while. It's a bit of a tedious process, but like it's so worth it because
Mhm.
to add to what you just said, I love what you that point because the body is always listening.
Yeah,
Like the
it
body is
is.
always listening and it is always reacting. So if you're after come back home after a long day and you say I'm dying, I'm so tired, guess
Yeah.
what? That's like literally the signal that you send to your cells,
Exactly. Don't
right?
underestimate the signal that you're sending to your body by saying those things. That's a great example because how often, oh, I'm dead. I can't move anymore. I don't,
Right.
or in the morning, oh, I don't want to get up. Ooh,
Yes.
that's
Or
a
exactly.
message also for your body.
Yeah.
If you don't get up, your body's not gonna, have
No.
the adrenaline and the endorphins and stuff
Yeah, especially if
um
you say that, like you said, the
ready.
night before. So in the morning, you'll get up so tired, right? Because that's what you said your
Yeah.
body to do. And yeah, just let's just be mindful about the words. It's also about the energy behind the words. Like for me, I'm very particular about certain things. For instance, Camilla and I are recording the podcast on this program called Discord. And I was introduced to Discord by my friend. And then I said, I really love Discord because it's a very good sound quality, but it's such an unfortunate name. Like, Discord, it means that something is off, something is,
I
there's
haven't
like,
even thought of that.
yeah. And then, what I said? I said, do you mind if from now on we refer to Discord as, say, rainbow? And then he laughed and he was like, why? I go like, because I don't want to bring that energy because we were talking about Discord a lot. I was like, let's just call rainbow. And then he'll be like, okay, I'll see you on rainbow. Like you're
That's
laughing, but
funny.
it brings like such a better energy to it, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
totally. And
right.
Vilma, you and I, we both studied in England, so we lived there for several years. And remember how, as a standard response to "How are you?" people would answer like, "Not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. I'm not too
Mm,
bad."
right.
That's a cultural thing, and I'm not trying to, be critical and harsh.
No,
But just
no.
what kind of energy are you bringing to the table? You're not too bad. That's actually horrible.
Because you're saying bad. What your body is hearing is bad, right?
Yeah.
That's what your body
And
is
also,
hearing.
it's like, I'm not too bad, so I'm just okay bad, sort of.
Yeah.
It sounds like
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. But if you say, "Oh, I'm great," and then they be like, "Oh, great. So what's happening that is great?" Then again, you're forced to look for positive things in your life and be like,
Mm,
"Well, like I just got a promotion or whatever." You just remember. And
yeah.
another thing is also not only to, so we gave you a few tools already, which is, hey, become mindful of what you're thinking, question your thoughts. Another thing that I liked, because I remembered when you said, Camilla, when you would look for a counter thought, was also when I was in Vipassana and I realized that my mind is quite judgmental and I don't notice that. And in our breaks between meditation, people would go out and have walks in nature, right? And then at first, when my mind was still a bit uneasy, I realized that, just like you said, I'm judging what people are wearing, right? And people
Hmm.
were wearing
Hmm.
comfortable clothes. It's a freaking meditation retreat. But you know what? My mind had a lot to say about what they were wearing, right? And I,
Yeah.
I myself probably looked funny because I'm always cold, so I had layered and layered things in myself. So probably they were laughing at me, but doesn't matter to my mind. And then, I was like, you know what? What if I play this game? Whenever I see someone passing me by and I was sitting on a bench, I would tell myself to find, like you said, at least one thing that I really appreciate about the way they look, right? And then it
Hmm.
became such a beautiful automatic thing. Like the woman would pass, and
Yeah.
I really didn't like her outfit, but I'd be like, oh, but her hair, look at the gorgeous hair, right?
Exactly.
Previously, I
It's
wouldn't
so
even
important that
notice.
we do that with people in our life, with situations in our life. I know it sometimes. But really, guys, nothing is all bad and no one is all stupid. So
Right.
if you allow yourself, if you open your mind to finding something positive about someone or something, you will find it. It's just that if you don't find it, it's because you're not looking for it and you're not open to it.
And you're in your automatic story because you have a story not only about yourself
Exactly.
but about people in your life. And guess what? If you give the people space to grow, and say, even if someone did not show up for you in the past, but you're like, you know what, but I love these qualities about them, I love what's good about
Mm-hmm.
them, I'll give them space to meet me at my expectation. And very often people feel that energetically and they want to show up for you then, because they don't feel like they're judged, right? Because if
Yeah,
they already think
exactly.
that you think that they're not performing, they're gonna probably, like, make you right. They'd be like, okay, well, she doesn't like me anyway, so why am I even trying?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's another thing.
And just another funny exercise that you can do with yourself tool to combat the negative self-talk is that well, once you become aware of it, which is the first step, and once you are aware of it, you are already a lot ahead from so many other people,
Mm-hmm.
um, so far ahead of so many other people. And so what you could do is that you give this inner critic in your mind, you give it a name, sort of as to distance yourself from
Right.
it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you could just give it like a probably a kind of funny name.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you notice, that you're going off about your workmate or your friend or whoever it is, then you just say something like, "Stop it." I don't know. I can't come up with a silly name, and I don't want to use a name that maybe will offend someone who has that name. So
Yeah.
so just you call out this inner critic by its name, the name that you've given it, and you just say stop it, right?
Yeah.
And that will also have a great effect on it
Yeah.
in shutting it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And not even you don't even have to necessarily say stop it. Like I did, I just question it. I would just be like, "Really?" And then it's
Yeah,
quiet. They'll be like, well,
exactly.
because they don't have anything to say back to you, right? It's just an automatic program. It's not responding to you, it's just running. It's doing its own thing, right? So it's not personal. It's just doing its own thing. And yeah, giving name, I tried that with one of my clients once. And then I said, well, how about we try to identify and give, like, a name or like an image to part of you that is, making you feel anxious. For her, it was anxiety
Hmm.
and the thought process connected to that. And then she thought of a squirrel. And every time she said, and then she shared with me, on the next session after this, she goes like, it was really funny because whenever I would find myself in that anxious state, I would imagine the squirrel just running around like completely crazy, and then I would start laughing, and that would completely interrupt the pattern for me, right? And I'd be like, oh, it's just
Yeah,
my squirrel being crazy. It's okay. I don't have to be in that energy. I choose to step out of it. So
yeah,
that's a great, great exercise, definitely. Um,
great.
there was
I love
something.
it.
There was something else that I wanted to say regarding that. Um, choosing to introduce positivity, becoming aware of it. There's so much you can do. Like, really, you have the control, right? You can create the story about yourself and almost like write a script for yourself. And if you start believing in it and you adjust your thought process and the things that you tell yourself according to your script, it will become your truth. Really, that's how life works.
It really does. And just think about it. What we think about repeatedly will, reflect in our outer world, and it will have an even hypnotic effect on our inner world, on our subconscious. So super important to first become aware of it. Second, question your thoughts. Do the counter thought model. Third, become mindful of the things that you say, the way you say it, the words you choose, and and then introduce some positive thoughts and some, or we don't even have to label them positive, but they
No.
can be more constructive. Introduce some different and more constructive thoughts to your common thoughts, the ones that you're having
Yeah.
usually.
The ones that are serving you. I think that's a good way to put it. Introduce the thoughts that are serving you. So if you're
Hmm.
nervous before a presentation, for instance, at work, and if you really quiet down, if you go to a quiet room and start listening to your thoughts, it will probably be telling you of all the times you failed, of all the times you had sweaty palms, of all the times you didn't know how to answer to a question, right? But if you start
Hmm.
like saying, okay, that happened in the past, it doesn't mean that it's equal to my future. I can choose to think like, look, I may not be the best presenter, but I'm going to do my best. I know that I spend so much time preparing for it, so I know the content, right? Just start literally, logically choosing the thoughts that's serving you. And the same,
Exactly.
yeah, and
And
this
empower you.
and empower
Hmm.
you, give you like that energy, self-confidence. It's We are not telling you to be cocky, but self-confidence is important. Self-appreciation, knowing that you're enough, knowing that you're great, you're perfect in an imperfect way. As cliche as it sounds, it's so important. And
It is so important.
yeah, and another thing is guard your focus again. I know I'm repeating that a lot, but say, I know Camilla and myself, we don't have TVs, we don't watch the news, and that's on purpose. Because there's
Mm.
so much negativity in mainstream media. They're talking about, the politics, the wars, the pollution, the everything. If you keep on listening, like I'm back home now visiting my mom, and she has TV on a lot,
Oh my
and
God, I was just gonna say the same thing. I'm
right,
with my parents, and we had this political discussion this morning.
right,
It's interesting, and obviously, Vilma and I, we stay up to date. We know what's going on in the world.
yes,
We
yes,
just
of
don't
course,
buy into the negativity and the fear-making machine that is the
yeah.
news. Sorry, I interrupted you though.
No, 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 absolutely. That's exactly what I wanted to say. So, like, become mindful of what you're consuming, whether consciously or not
Yeah.
consciously. Radios, like, I don't listen to radios unless it's only like quiet, jazzy, whatever music, right? I don't do that anymore because for me, it's just like it's making me feel low. It's making me feel
Hmm.
contracted. Like, again, listen to your body. Your body will always tell you what's resonating with it and what's not, right? So, there's
Yeah.
just so much you can do, and us as well, and we do it every day, and we're still learning, we're still trying, different tools and techniques, and we're here to share them with you in the hope that that will at least maybe make you think and stop and realize that actually it's all in your hands, and you can have somewhat control of your mind process.
Exactly. It is in your hands. There is an alternative. You can watch the news, but then you can switch off the TV after you're up to date and not go into that typical talk show where they'll just, start using all this low energy language, and that will affect you negatively. And then there's
Absolutely.
one last thing that I just wanted to throw in here as well, is that when you speak to yourself, actually, Vilma, you mentioned that before, that when you say you're not too bad, what your mind and your body will hear is bad. So it's good not to use negative phrases. For instance, I was actually thinking when I think you were talking about the presentation, right, and being really nervous. And in my case, when I'm really nervous, I think things like, I can't do this. I can't do this. So really what you are transmitting to yourself is, I cannot do this. And what you could be thinking is just, I will do this. I will do this, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
don't use negative phrases. Use them positively.
Yeah, and just be mindful. Like when you start, observing your own process, your mental process, and the words that you use. I don't know, Camilla, if it happened to you. I started noticing other people's process and the words that they use, right?
Oh,
And I'd be
yes.
like, oh,
So revealing.
it is so revealing, isn't it? And then it's so interesting how you can just by listening to what words the person uses, you can pretty much pretty accurately describe what their life is about, especially if they're
Mm,
complaining and if they're using like negative words to be like, well, you live in a really contractive small world where you don't believe that things are possible, not for other people, neither for you. And that's just, you could live so differently if you just wanted to, right? So
exactly.
that's really, 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 really very, like I think we said important at least 43 times now, but it is a very
It
important
is
topic.
so important. It is like self-mastery. That's what it's about. It's, living an intentional life and having very intentional self-talk. So
Right.
I would be so interested in what you guys have to share, what came up for you and what you were able to analyze about your own self-talk. Please do share it in the comments or email us, whichever way. We would love to know and love to get your feedback on this.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah. And
mhm.
yeah, also at the same time, just a final note after your final note is please like
It's so
just
fascinating.
yeah, it is. We can't stop. But just please, don't at the same time while we say it's very important, I also don't want you to look at it as a chore. For me, it's more like a game, like becoming more
Yeah.
aware and be playful with it. It'd be like, sometimes I was talking to my friend the other day and he was like, "What a horror," and I was like, "Really? Is it really horror? Like, you just like your whatever pencil broke. Is it really that
Mhm.
horrendous?" Like, and we were
Yeah.
laughing about it. Just draw attention to if you want to sort of help other people be more mindful of that, make it into a joke, right? And then you'll see
Yeah,
how much fun it is. Then they laugh and they're like, oh, I didn't even realize I used that word, right? Like catastrophe, like you
exactly.
said. So
Or
it's
yeah, or
fun.
you could just ask them, is there a way we could look at this differently? Oh, all of a sudden you'll be in a completely different mindset, and all of a sudden there will be possibilities and opportunities where you thought it was just, a dead end.
Yeah, like I love that. Yeah, it's like I got a visual now. It's like, when you're just believing your story and believing your thoughts and not questioning anything, it's like you're sitting there in the dark, dark room and that's all you know.
Mhm.
And then suddenly, if someone asks you, really? Or like you said, is it really the only way to look at it? Suddenly, the doors open up and the curtains are drawn back and the light come in and you're like, oh my God. It's not
There's
just,
more of this.
of course, it's not
Yeah.
just the only way to look at it, right? So I love that. Really, I think, yeah, I think we can wrap up here because it's endless, isn't it? But
Yes, it's endless. It's fascinating. Feel free to, to contact us to carry on the conversation. And well, yes, without further ado, we wish you a great next 2 weeks, and we
mhm.
cannot wait to be back with a brand new episode.
Thank you guys, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe, share, and comment, and do let us know how our tips are working out for you. You can find our websites below, and we'd love to virtually meet you there.